Joe Biden, meanwhile, 1 week out from Election Day, will be in the state of Georgia, the first time as the Democratic nominee that he'll be there. First to Warm Springs, which, as you know, served as Franklin Delano Roosevelt's retreat from 1924 through his 12 years as president, before making his way to Atlanta will Vice President Biden for a drive-in rally. Georgia remains neck and neck in the latest polling. We told you yesterday about the AJC poll that has Biden up 47 to 46 within the margin of error, plus or minus 4 points. In Wisconsin, the latest Reuters Ipsos poll shows Joe Biden ahead by 9 points, 53 to 44. In Pennsylvania, that same poll finds Biden leading by 7 points, 51 to 44. And in Texas, the latest New York Times Siena College poll puts President Trump ahead by 4 points, 47 to 43%. Let's bring in national political correspondent for NBC News and MSNBC, Steve Kornacki. Steve, let's start in the state of Georgia, if we could. It's pretty extraordinary that the Democratic nominee for president 1 week out is in Georgia, of all places. What do you make of the numbers in that state? How have they moved lately?
Yeah, I mean, you put it up there. That's roughly consistent with the polling average. I think one way of looking at this here, here's the road to 270. Every state that you see in gray here, that includes Georgia. These are states that Trump carried in 2016 that look like they are parts of the battleground in 2020. There's varying degrees of trouble for Trump on this map. You've put up a Wisconsin, a Michigan, even a Pennsylvania. Those are the 3 states in this grouping where his numbers are the weakest right now. You know, a state like Texas is looking competitive, but Trump's poll numbers are better there than they are in the Midwest. But basically, the way to look at this map, at least the way that I do, is there are a couple states here that you see as blue: New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Nevada. These are states the Trump campaign has talked about flipping. Blue states, Clinton won in 2016. They've talked about flipping. You're not seeing it in the polls right now. So barring that, barring Trump's ability to flip one of those states I just circled, it is all about Trump playing defense in these states right here. We took you through it the last time I was on a few days ago. If he just loses, Trump does, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that would put Biden over 270. A loss in a state like Georgia, for instance, I could just show you, if that were ever to turn blue, you see Biden would be then sitting at 248. And then if you just went through the Midwest here, there's Wisconsin, there's Michigan. Even without touching Pennsylvania, a state like Georgia +2 in the Midwest would put Biden over 270. There are scenarios here for Trump. We can get into them. But the bottom line is he is playing defense in an awful lot of places here with a week to go.
So, Steve Kornacki, let's talk about election night. A lot of people are talking about, hey, we're not going to know the outcome of this race for, a month, maybe 2 months. But on election night, we're going to learn fairly early, maybe even by the end of the evening, what's happened in Arizona, what's happened in North Carolina, and, of course, what's happened in Florida. I mean, we're going to know most likely by 9 p.m. with all the early votes counted in Florida. We're going to know the shape of that race by 9 p.m. See how fascinating that's going. If Joe Biden wins any one of those 3 states, and if we assume what the 2 campaigns have assumed, that Biden has Wisconsin and Michigan locked down, is that enough for Joe Biden?
Yeah, take a look at a couple different scenarios here. You mentioned Florida, right, and how it'll work outside the panhandle, basically 7 o'clock Eastern. In that first half hour, we think we're largely going to get the early vote and the mail-in vote, and then the same-day vote not that long after. If past his prologue here, you're going to come in for Florida. At 7:30, you're going to get North Carolina. I'll add another state here that I think you're going to get substantial results from. That's Ohio. The polls close at Ohio at 7:30 in Ohio. Unlike a lot of these other states we're talking about in the Midwest, they do allow the processing of ballots ahead of time. That's a process that's underway in Ohio. So there's the potential to get a readout from Ohio. As you say, late at night, we might get something from Arizona. Texas might be producing numbers, too. Again, look, if you start with Michigan and Wisconsin going blue. I know the Trump folks will contest that at this point, but just for the sake of playing out these scenarios, if you start with Michigan and Wisconsin going blue, a Florida would certainly put Biden over the top. We just said a Georgia would put Biden over the top. A North Carolina would put Biden over the top. If you get out west in Arizona by itself, that would not put Biden over the top. You see, that would put him at 269 on the cusp of things. When you see that, that's when you need to start talking about this. Nebraska, they do the electoral votes by congressional district. Notice that one of these is gray here. 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska. It's basically Omaha. Trump barely hung on there in 2016. He won it by about 3 points. The polling that's available there suggests Trump's probably an underdog there right now, if anything. So if you gave that to Biden, again, that would get him to 270. We didn't touch Florida. We didn't touch Arizona in this scenario. That's what we mean about a lot of paths. When you're ahead 8 nationally, there are going to be a lot of potential paths.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.